Michael Bloomberg sure is a controversial figure, ain't he? Some people love him, some people hate him, and I personally know very little about him other than he's one of the richest people on the planet. That's why this video's about me reviewing a comic book. There ain't no politics in my mom's basement, and there ain't no basements in Florida thanks to the high water table. So where the fuck have I been living for the last 20 years? Spider-Man You're Hired is a quick one-shot comic given away for free inside of issues of the New York Daily News, and it's impressive that not a single New York homeless person ever used it for toilet paper. After all, why would you wipe your ass with shit? I don't care about the piss-soaked traffic jam dubiously named New York City, and I'm so politically inept I couldn't even tell you what party Bloomberg is currently in, but I do know a shitty comic when I see one, and this comic is impressively, at least objectionably stupid on each and every page. Spider-Man You're Hired was created as a cross-promotion piece while Bloomberg was mayor of New York City, to inform its citizens of New York's Workforce One job placement system, and it doesn't do a fucking thing related to that except mention, hey, you can use Workforce One to get a job. Call the phone number or check us out online. In other words, it runs 8 pages to explain something a single flyer could have done for much cheaper and much less sell-outier. Fuck it. I'm not doing anything with my life to be proud of, so let's analyze every single page of this waste of both my time and yours. The impressive thing about these blatant advertising books gift-wrapped as crossover events is they don't ever present an interesting depiction of the real person in question. The cover has Michael Bloomberg standing on a roof next to Spider-Man. Why? Why is he up there? What's he doing? How is he not afraid of being that close to the edge? He's a politician, not a superhero, not a daredevil, not a stuntman, roller coaster junkie, construction worker, base jumper, or one of the 400 other professions that you'd expect to see teetering on the edge of a skyscraper. But let's go in the opposite direction. Let's say in this comic book, Bloomberg gets superpowers and does something truly heroic. While this comic certainly doesn't depict that in any clear, observable, or most importantly, exciting way, I want to come back to this point after we go through the entire comic book, because I have a lot to say about this thing specifically. The point I'm trying to make here will make the most sense after we get through the whole story. Peter Parker's riding the subway with Aunt May after having been fired by J. Jonah Jameson, which, that's not new at all. Parker's probably going to get rehired within the next 4 hours, but regardless, he's flipping through the paper looking for jobs while Aunt May tells him that maybe it's time to move on from his boss that seems to have taken a caffeine tablet instead of his regular prescription Ritalin. Peter's considering becoming something new, like an editor or a teacher, and circles an ad looking for something that may be right up his alley. Great opportunity. Empire State University is looking for a friendly, motivated lab assistant, full-time, near Subway. Vel in fuegiat eros duis amet te blandit odio Louis te ilium al lipqui. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. It seems Peter has to be fluent in made-up Latin in order to apply for this position. We're 3 fucking panels in, and you're already hitting me with the lorem ipsum? These motherfuckers were so lazy they resorted to using auto-generated text to fill out 2 sentences on the 3rd panel of an 8-page comic. It's not like you had to come up with a slew of dialogue, guys. There's a chance, I suppose, that this is an intentional joke, but there's so much more potential to be funny here instead of relying on the Wilhelm scream of fictional text. Try harder. Peter and Aunt May talk about some relatable struggles in finding a job when Peter notices a pregnant woman. Recognizing the horrible blight on America that another child from New York would cause, he offers to let her have his seat, since he was currently sitting on the New York subway's official 9-inch vertical spike. You know, the one with the slogan that says, "Sit down like an American, get fucked like a New Yorker." The pregnant woman says no thanks, as it seems Peter's lucky pen is leaking its hot pen juice all over Peter and his seat. But this is New York, so someone is legally required to be rude within every 3-minute time span, so a rushing passenger knocks Parker down and makes his way to the doors. In the Cascade, Peter gets his deliciously sticky pen juice all over Mayor Bloomberg! "I'm so sorry, my pen, exploded." "Yes, I see that. And then I got up to..." "It's okay. Really, it's okay. Accidents happen. And any New Yorker who gives up his seat for a pregnant woman is world-class in my book. Mr. Bloomberg, your book that defines New Yorkers is horrifically inaccurate. Here's the top 5 things a real New Yorker would actually do if given the opportunity to give up their seat for a pregnant woman on the subway. Number 5, accidentally smack her in the stomach because they're blasting their music and staring too intently at their phone to even notice the outside world. Number 4, make fun of her for being fat, and when corrected that she's pregnant, continue to make fun of her for being fat. Number 3, urinate on her because, and I quote, she's standing in my favorite urinating spot that I claimed this morning. Number 2, tell her that you normally would give up your seat, but you conveniently have one of 100 medical excuses that's really just a cover for being too greedy to want to give up a precious seat on a crowded subway. And the number one most likely thing a New Yorker would do if confronted with potentially giving their seat up to a pregnant woman is absolutely nothing, because that would require a shred of human decency. Peter asks Mayor Bloomberg what he's doing on the subway, and he replies, "Well, they call me the MetroCard mayor for a reason. New York has the best transit system in the world, and I ride it all the time. In fact, I've been aboard a few stops now, and I overheard the great advice your Aunt May was giving you." Now, this is a half-truth. Bloomberg was known for often riding the subway for his daily commute when he covered New York City, but I haven't been able to find any mention of the phrase MetroCard mayor anywhere in the search I've done for all of this. Which leads me to believe that this is a fun little line that the writers threw in to make Bloomberg seem super likable and relatable. All it makes me think is whoever was paid to write this superhero comic has a life as bland as white toast on bread. Also, if you out there side with Michael Bloomberg here and truly, honestly, really believe that New York has a public transportation system better than, Seoul, South Korea, Tokyo, Japan, or the entire country of Singapore, then hop on a train in each of those places and see which one gets you verbally assaulted by a crackhead first. The results may surprise you. So you heard that I was fired? Yes, Peter, but you certainly can't let that derail your job search. Staying aggressive is critical, especially in a competitive environment. This comic came out in 2011, in other words, during a time of high employment and slow job growth. Bloomberg's little attitude here should be rewritten as, you probably won't be able to get a job no matter what you do in this economy, but don't worry, if you keep failing, you can just blame yourself for not being aggressive enough. Bloomberg explains that there's a service called Workforce One that sets you up with a career advisor to help you with all the steps to finding a job, and it's free to use. He invites Peter and Aunt May to walk along with him and explains all the details. Just a casual stroll with Spider-Man, Aunt May, Mayor Bloomberg, and his 2 hulking security guards who will break fingers at the mere second someone tries to get within Michael Bloomberg's personal space to ask him a question. While outside, the 2 old people in the 2 suits discuss some random statistics of the Workforce One centers, while Peter finds a crisp Benjamin on the ground. Looking up, he spies the Vulture, and immediately deduces that he's fleeing the scene of a robbery. That's pretty fucked up, Spider-Man. Can't a man wear a giant green flying leotard and rain $100 bills onto the streets of New York from his fashionable handbags without being assumed to be a criminal? If that's how you profile people, Spider-Man, then I've got to change my weekly Sunday night plans. Anyway, Peter makes up an excuse that he wants to buy some water for a nearby deli, so then he sneaks away as Spider-Man and beats up Vulture and ties him up for the police, and it has literally nothing to do with anything, so let's just skip it. Aunt May and Bloomberg try to talk to Peter about literally anything, but Peter gets a call from Abe V. Enger, which... Good Lord, Peter, don't you think that if anyone you know glances over your shoulder one day, they're gonna figure this out? Okay, true, to be fair, I'm nitpicking, and it's cute. It's not a big deal.
I think that coffee I had earlier isn't sitting right. I'm gonna go find a bathroom. Peter Parker! Be right back, Aunt May.
So Peter fakes having liquidy diarrhea and leaves to take a shit. But instead of taking a shit, he fights a giant T-Rex with cybernetic enhancements and a dinosaur-sized revolver. Okay, fuck, maybe this comic is awesome. But then, just as soon as I'm getting excited, I get angry for 2 reasons. 1, How in the absolute fuck is a gigantic electronic supersonic shooting T-Rex attacking New York City and the fucking mayor isn't informed of this in any way? Bloomberg should be evacuating right now and the city should be in absolute panic. But it's calm enough that Spider-Man can announce to his aunt and his representative that he's only got the Hershey squirts. And second of all, it turns out that this is Electrosaurus's only appearance. Let me say that again. This comic is the Electrosaurus's only appearance in the entirety of Marvel Comics. You're telling me you make a design this cool and over the top, and the only place you can think to use it is a Michael fucking Bloomberg employment program advertisement? Good fucking lord, no wonder comic books died in favor of the cinematic universes, because you guys don't know how to utilize a great concept when you get one. Gatling guns on a T-Rex? Really? The teeth aren't enough? Draw its fire. It gets cooler! And this is its only appearance! Fuck you, Marvel! Peter does the thing and then he gets an excuse for taking so long to come back, even though the fight with the T-Rex seems to have only lasted about 4 minutes, which is a perfectly reasonable pooping coffee time. And also, somehow the fucking mayor doesn't know that there's a giant Gatling gun T-Rex in the city, but whatever. Peter says he ran to buy Bloomberg a new tie to replace the one he ruined on the subway. Michael Bloomberg has been a multi-billionaire since around 2001. And you bought him a fucking tie from Men's Warehouse. Then Bloomberg's bodyguard says there's reports of Spider-Man in the city, instead of the giant fucking gun-toting T-Rex, but okay, I can't keep bringing this up because it's just so stupid. Anyway, in a pathetic bid for the writers to make sure we think Bloomberg is super cool and down to earth, he mentions he loves Spider-Man. Spidey's as much a part of New York as the Statue of Liberty or the Empire State Building. I know some people give him a bad rap, but I think he's just another hard-working New Yorker. Don't you, Peter?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think I'm in any danger, do you?
No, Mr. Mayor, I don't think so.
It was a pleasure meeting you, but I've got a meeting with Jay-Z and Mikhail Prokhorov. Sure, in a few minutes, and I hear they're looking for a point guard for their new basketball team in Brooklyn. I promised myself I'd get a few hook shots in before we met.
I'm sorry I missed most of the meeting, Mayor Bloomberg.
Remember, kids, Bloomberg is cool because he plays basketball and he likes Spider-Man and he knows other billionaires, and also go to New York NYC.gov and call 311 or more for more info. And that's the end of the comic, pretty much. Let's recap what happened here. Peter Parker accidentally spilled ink on Mayor Bloomberg's tie. They used that as an excuse to get to chatting about where Peter can look for work in New York City. During the conversation, Peter left to fight some crime as Spider-Man that had really no relevance or lasting consequences on the plot whatsoever, except for letting Bloomberg shoehorn in a line about how cool he thinks Spider-Man is. The end. I don't understand why so much fiction is fucking boring just because it has to be firmly based in reality. You're given the endorsement of the Bloomberg campaign to utilize his likeness and spread his new message and political programs, and you do it by just having him stand there and tell you the same shit that you'd see him say on TV, but in a comic book? It's a waste of every level of the creative process. From the writers to the artists to the readers looking for something different yet functionally informative. When I was in 12th grade, that's the last year of high school for any of you freedom-hating non-Americans, Barack Obama had been president for about 2 years. I was in my US government class that concluded the year with a freestyle project. Do whatever you want as long as it taught the class about something you learned that year. So I fired up Photoshop, and using a bunch of pictures that I stole from like the internet and the news and shit, I made a Barack Obama comic book where he was a superhero. The plot was he was called on by the rest of the government to swoop in and save the day in the face of political issues, particularly those where the president is specifically needed, such as vetoing laws or acting as ultimate leader of the military. I even included a panel where he fired laser beams from his eyes and melted Hillary Clinton's skull to secure the presidential nomination in 2008. It was goofy, and it also informed the reader of real presidential power and relevant events at the time. I got a perfect score. Because of fucking course I did. That sounds awesome. And I would much rather go back and read my cringy writing 17-year-old me made than more of this fucking haha looks politics band of superhero thing. Wow, so cool. Let's not bother to do anything interesting bullshit pamphlet. I was a better writer than professionals when I was a teenager. Good God. It's not hard at all to work with the concept of real person meets superhero, no matter how boring. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, Bloomberg's people mandated that he needs to appear as himself in the comic. No giving him superpowers, no superheroes based off of Bloomberg, no putting him in outlandish comic scenarios beyond the actual factual Michael Bloomberg shows up and meets Spider-Man for some reason. The obvious route is to come up with a reason for a real person to get in on the action if you want them to come off as cool and inspiring to the reader. Have Spider-Man lose to a new or upgraded familiar foe. Let's say Green Goblin now has an impregnable shield that Spider-Man just can't get through no matter what he tries. Then Bloomberg can be a bit of a Batman and use some of his billions to secretly create tech for Spider-Man to save the day. Hey Spidey, it's your old pal Senor Bloomboy, and I know you're trying to save New York from that green gobstopper. So use these ultrasonic gauntlets I made for you with my wise investments, Spidey, to destroy the Green Goblin. And then like Spider-Man would be like, wow, thanks Mayor, I couldn't have done it without you. Bam! Spider-Man kicks the villain's ass. And then he says, say, now that I saved the day and have your attention, Mayor Bloomberg, I've got this friend named Petey Parkey who desperately needs a job. What can he do? And then you work in the advertisement and you tell the reader like all the stats and how good the program is and where you can learn more. Now you have a somewhat organic way for Bloomberg to be involved with Spider-Man. You get the idea. You figure out the specifics in the writer's room, but that's the idea. Or, if you're not afraid to show Mayor Bloomberg in a compromising situation, you could develop a plotline where Bloomberg hires Spider-Man to act as his bodyguard for a day because he's worried about being attacked by Mysterio or some other costume fuck, and he knows his current security detail just won't cut it. Spider-Man says he'll do it, and after he saves Bloomberg's life in an action-packed close call, Spider-Man has him repay the favor by granting an exclusive interview to his friend and reporter Peter Parker to boost his career at the Daily Bugle. During the interview on what Bloomberg has been doing recently to improve New York City, Bloomberg tells Peter Parker about the new Workforce One initiative and how great of an economic boon it's been. You can include the job statistics and have him do an actual presentation that's for Peter, but is really for the reader. There, it's not too political, and it won't potentially anger clueless, super political readers. It's exciting enough to work in plenty of action that follows a realistic plot. And both of the main stars, Bloomberg and Spider-Man, for the most part, are acting in character. There's 1,000,001 ways to approach this scenario, but time and time again, we see talentless writers not even try in these company-mandated crossovers. I get it. It's not exactly the material you want to work on, but who gives a shit? Have fun with it. Do something interesting with it. If your job is to be a writer at a large company, you're usually going to have to jump through a bunch of hoops, and you really shouldn't have any difficulty coming up with a way to make those hoops exciting. You don't have to do anything wildly creative since the platform of blatant advertising isn't the ideal place to launch that kind of thing. But at least try to give people something that doesn't feel like you made it up in 5 minutes, which is even more embarrassing because the two plot ideas that I just read off to you, I typed those up in about 4 minutes each. It's almost as if people will be more willing to try out your product, or in this case, hear out your message, if you get them invested in the first place. But now I'm tired. My shoulder hurts and my mouth is dry, and I wrote way more about this thing than I thought I would, and I don't care anymore. I have more narrative writing talent in 10 minutes of improvised scratch thoughts than all of Marvel's promotional writing team of 2011 combined. Now I'm going to go use that talent to go watch hentai. Goodbye.